Well, good morning. I was given a run sheet. You guys are very organised. You put together these run sheets of the schedule of every minute of the program, and I just looking at it earlier this morning, that I've been given from 19 minutes past 9 to 19 minutes past 11. That's 2 hours. So settle in. I hope you're comfortable. Well, as I said earlier, my wife Leanne joined me earlier in the service. My children are at our own church. We go to Eden Community Church in Mount Eden. Nathan is playing the drums this morning, so he's not here. And our daughter is on childcare, so they're very involved in our church, which is great. But I shared a little bit about who our family is, but let me give you some insight into what our family is like. Now, this is going back a little way. Our son, now 18, this is when he was at preschool. He was involved in that. And Leanne picked him up from preschool one day, and she was taking him home in the car, and he just happened to say to her, Mum, Ben got sent to the office today. Now, Ben is his friend, and the office apparently is where they got sent when they were behaving not very well. So he said, Ben got sent to the office today. So Leanne asked him, oh, is that right? Do you ever get sent to the office? And he said, yes, but some days I don't. He's been a handful ever since he was born. He was pressing up his face against the bars of that crib when he was little. It was almost like, won't be long before I can break out of here and I can rule this house. He's just that sort of kid. Well, a little while later, our daughter Bethany went to the same preschool, and Leanne picked her up after one day, and she was driving home, and Bethany said to her, Mum, I got sent to the office today. And Leanne was telling me this, and we're thinking, oh no, not her as well. And then she said, just kidding. Because she had heard us tell the story about Nathan, and so she's our entertainer. She makes us laugh. There's never short of entertainment in our place. There's always something happening. Well, happy Father's Day to all you guys that are dads that are here. Like being a dad, being a father is the easiest job in the world. I mean, you get a manual, right? And you get this fantastic on-job training. We pass a test, and then how hard can it be, right? Well, wouldn't we all wish it was that easy? Wouldn't that be nice? Being a dad is a great responsibility, but it's also a great privilege. So I want to unpack a little bit and paint a picture of what being a dad who is an everyday hero is like. Now, I realise, obviously, as I speak to you this morning, that not everybody here is a dad. And I also realise on a day like this that there are a lot of mixed emotions that Jonathan mentioned about before, because some of you may look back and maybe your hearts are broken because you had a dad that was disconnected from you. Maybe you had a dad that was abusive or absent. Or maybe you're in a position where your dad's passed away, and sort of days like this, it just reminds you of how much you miss him. All sorts of things. And maybe you're married and you don't have children. Well, I think as we unpack this, what it means to be a hero, and what, as a dad raising kids, we are all, whether we realise it or not, we are all leaders in some aspect in our life. We all have people that are watching us, how we live, how we lead, how we interact. And you don't have to be a parent or a school teacher or a pastor to be leading people. We are all leading people to some degree. So some of what I share this morning will be specific to dads, but a lot of it will be general for all the rest of us. So as I look at you this morning, I can see that you're a very intelligent group of people. Is that right? You're not going to say no, are you? I can tell. I can see that you're intelligent. So you'll work it out. You'll be able to sift through and translate maybe the things that apply to dads and maybe the things that apply to everybody else. But let's spend a few minutes and just unpack and have a look at what a dad as an everyday hero is like, and you can translate. First of all, and that 3 simple points, because it has to be simple for me or I won't do it. So 3 simple points. First of all, be a hero by leading wisely. Or you could say seeking wisdom. Let me read from Proverbs. Proverbs 4. Solomon, the wise king, is passing on some instructions to a young boy. And he says this, My child, listen to me and do as I say, and you will live a long, good life. I will teach you wisdom's way and lead you in straight paths. If you live a life guided by wisdom, you won't limp or stumble as you run. Carry out my instructions, don't forsake them. Guard them, for they will lead you to a fulfilled life. Now, there's an unspoken inference in that passage as Solomon is passing on that instruction. Did you pick it up? He says, I will teach you wisdom's way. It suggests that he has walked in it first. What he's passing on is not some sort of foreign information that hasn't been part of his life. He has walked in it first. Because wisdom doesn't come by accident. It's not just we don't stumble across it by chance. Of course, the best definition I've come across of wisdom is this: skill in everyday living. Wisdom literally means skill in everyday living. It means that we have the skills to do what we need to do each day just to get by. And as you look around, probably you know people who it seems that this comes more naturally to them. You know, sometimes we'll think, oh man, I wish I was as wise as, you know, that guy or that girl or my neighbour or King Solomon. If only I had that sort of wisdom, you know, I'd be doing much better in life. But you know, if we don't have wisdom, if we feel like we lack wisdom, the Bible tells us what to do, doesn't it? What do? We ask. In James, the book of James, those who lack wisdom ask, and God will give generously. And I've sort of found in my life, you know, prayer is really important. Sometimes, I know I do, and I can't speak for you, but sometimes we underestimate the power of prayer, don't we? But I've discovered, you know, every day that I don't pray is a day that I'm saying to God, God, I don't need you. And I don't want to be doing that. And I've got to be honest, there's been a lot of times where I have prayed the prayer of the helpless parent. And it goes something like this: God, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what, in raising these little kids or raising our teenagers as they are, I don't know what I'm doing. Help me. And God, I want you to go before me. I want you to lead me. I want you to give me wisdom and guidance and direction, because if you don't go before me, I don't want to go. I don't want to be doing this on my own. I'm just not that good. And you know, God answers prayers like that. In fact, I think there's a sigh of relief in heaven when we pray, particularly the prayer of the helpless parent, because God's almost like, okay, finally I've got you where I want you. Finally, you're not relying on yourself. You're asking for wisdom. You're relying on me. And he can come in, step in, help us with that. Good thing to be doing. I love this quote by Benjamin Hooks. He says this: he who thinketh he leadeth and turns around to find no one is following is merely taking a walk. I love that. Because sometimes we're out there and we're leading and we think we're doing a great job of leading these people, and we turn around and there's nobody there. Where are these people I'm supposed to be leading? Where have they gone? And I think sometimes in leadership, particularly in parenting, we need to only go at the speed of the slowest person. Because we can be charging off and maybe we're climbing that corporate ladder like in the video before, and we're doing all these things that are significant and they're important and they're good. Nothing wrong with them, but if we're leaving our kids behind or our wife or our family or those that are important to us, we're not doing a successful job of leading. Only going at the pace of the slowest person. Of course, you know the most powerful way of leading, don't you? The most powerful way of leading another is being a model. And speaking for myself, my hero growing up, my everyday hero, the model for me was my dad. Because he showed me what it was like to have a committed faith. He lived it. He worked at, he was a manager of a printing company for 43 years, Wentforth Print. Some of you may have even had your printing done there before he retired 7 or 8 years ago. I used to work there in the holidays. But he modelled a good work ethic, integrity. He taught me about humility, you know, putting others first, even in the little things. And he didn't sit me down and sort of lecture and all that sort of stuff. He lived it. And I picked it up as the eyes of a young boy watching him, just as I know my son Nathan watches me. Sort of scary, but an incredible privilege, a great responsibility, modelling. Another wise man, Albert Einstein, you may have heard of him, he says this: setting an example is not the main means of influencing another. Now, Albert Einstein's a very wise man, so you know, sort of when he says something, you sort of think, oh, I'll listen to what he says. And he says, influencing is not the most important thing. He says, setting an example is not the main means of influencing another, it's the only means. Isn't that good? Setting an example. People, whether we're realizing it or not, we've got our kids watching us, or our workmates or people at church that we rub shoulders with, interact with. You know, it's sort of like little radar units. They're watching how we live. And we're modelling all the time without even knowing it. One of the things that we're modelling with our kids at our home, in our family, from a very young age, is modelling the importance of telling the truth. Because, you know, telling the truth is important, right? And if you're truthful, you don't have to worry about having a bad memory. So let me take you back to a Saturday morning, one time at our place. Saturday morning, I was out working in the yard, and our son, who was Nathan, at that time was about eight or nine, and he'd got some bricks. We had a pile of bricks at the back of our shed, and he'd got them out, and he was making something with them, and that was fine. I said, look, as long as when you've finished, you put them back. You get, sure, Dad? Yep, I'll put them back. Well, I finished what I was doing, and I went inside, and I was helping Leanne. A little while later, Nathan came in, and I said, have you put the bricks away? And he said, yes, but you just carry on helping Mum, okay? Don't go out and look. Well, we were having dinner later on, and Leanne was just complimenting him on how good he'd been that day. You've been so good. You know, you've been so kind to your little sister. You've been so obedient. And he stands up and he starts to walk outside the door. And I said, where are you going? And he goes, I'm just going to put the bricks away. Sometimes you need all the wisdom in the world. But they're learning, learning to be truthful as we model that. So a hero leads wisely. That's the first thing. Secondly, be a hero by loving unconditionally. This is my commandment, Jesus said, that you love one another as I have loved you. John 15. Now, I know he's not talking specifically to fathers here. He's talking to all of us. But God's love for his children is not based on what we do. Aren't you glad? Because if his love for us was based on what we do, then we'd all fail. None of us would pass. We're just not that good. But God's love for his children is not based on who we are, not based on what we do, but on who we are. We're his children. And as we model that same sort of love to our children or to others, we model what God is like. When we love others unconditionally, we reflect God's love to a culture that desperately needs to see what God is like. When we forgive one another, when we've been wronged or when we've wronged someone else, when we forgive, we reflect what God's forgiveness looks like. We reflect to the world what God is like. And I want to tell you, our world needs to see what God is like because we're drifting further and further away. We're in a culture now where they say millennials or the Generation Y or those sort of late teens, early 20s sort of age group is the most unchurched generation in the world's history. So they're not sitting in church like you are this morning. They're not hearing positive, encouraging things. They don't know what a relationship with God is like. They don't know about morals and value. They're being taught all the opposite side of stuff at school. And if you've got teenagers at school and you don't know what they're teaching in health and supposedly safe sex education, then I want to tell you, you'd be shocked. Because they're picking up all sorts of stuff that's totally opposite to probably what most of you people in this room would believe. That's what they're hearing. And so we need to be modeling something that is different. But unconditional love, I've got to say for myself, and I think I can speak for the rest of us, doesn't come naturally, does it? Because we tend to think of ourselves, we can be selfish. I can be selfish. And so what we do is we can tend to fall into the trap of performance-based love. I'll love someone as long as they're behaving the way I think they should or doing what I think they should do. Say, for example, for those of you that are in a family, you've got one of those family portraits organised, where you go along, you wear your best clothes and you have a photo, and then this happens. I think that's permanent ink. I don't think that's going to come off very easy. I sort of look at that and I don't know whether to laugh or cry if I was in that sort of situation about the permanent ink on that little baby's face. Or maybe your teenager takes the car out and they put a ding in it when they've promised you that they weren't going to use the car. Or they bring it back and they don't fill it up with petrol and you're in a hurry and, you end up being late. Or, performance-based love. Those sort of things, it's easy to fall into that trap. In fact, we've been teaching our kids, instilling in them from a very young age, that there is nothing good that they can do that will make us love them more. Of course, we want them to be good, but we're not basing our love for them on performance and what they do. There's nothing good that they can do. They don't have to earn our love. We're not going to love them more. And also, there's nothing bad that they can do that will make us love them less. Now, they may make wrong choices and make a mistake, and there's natural consequences of that, but we're not going to stop loving them because of a choice that they make. Nothing bad they can do to make us love them less. Our kids are going to let us down. They're going to make mistakes. Love them anyway. People are going to let us down. They're going to disappoint us. Love them anyway. People are going to annoy us. They're going to annoy you. They're going to frustrate you. They're going to get right up your nose. Love them anyway. In fact, what I've found quite often in our case, and maybe in yours too, is most of the time people don't do things to you as much as they are doing things for themselves. Now, what I mean by that is sometimes someone will do something and it'll be really irritating or frustrating, and we'll think, oh, they're just doing that to annoy me. They know I don't like that, and they're just trying to, really bug me. Well, they might not even be thinking of us when they did it, and we end up taking it personally, and we get frustrated and we get annoyed. But most of the time, people don't do things to you as much as they are doing things for themselves. So we don't want to take it personally. So unconditional love. We need to love our kids, obviously, but children need to experience unconditional love between their mum and their dad too, the most important people in their life. That's important. In fact, author Susan Alexander Yates says this: a child's security is based not on how much their parents love them as kids, but on how much they love each other. Now, for those that are parents, do we need to love our kids? Well, obviously, that's important. Yeah, we need to love them. They need us to love them. But their security is not based on our love of them. Their security is based on how much we, as a mum and a dad, love each other. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to do it perfectly all the time, because we're not perfect all the time. But their security comes from that. So, dads that are here, the best thing that you can do for your kids is to love their mum. And for those that may be in a situation where you're separated, now that can be tough. But what I'd say is do your best to live at peace. And especially when you're in front of the kids, be kind to one another. They need that. Their security comes from that. And I believe that, the next generation needs heroes today. They need heroes more than any other time in history, I believe, because they're searching for answers. They're looking for answers. And the best heroes, I believe, are not in Hollywood. They're not the ones that, can leap a tall building in a single bound or go faster than a speeding bullet or wear their underpants on the outside of their trousers, that sort of hero. The real heroes are in the home, where the real values are passed on to the next generation. Because as Chuck Swindoll said, the home is like a hothouse where we're passing on values. See, if kids aren't hearing about how to love unconditionally at home, where are they going to be hearing about it? Not at school. Where's the best place to learn about forgiveness? In the home, where we make mistakes and we have to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong, will you forgive me? They need that sort of thing modelled. If they don't see it at home, where are they going to pick that up? And so mums and dads that are here, we can do a good job of that, of teaching our kids, whatever age, the importance of love and forgiveness. Successful people, I've come to realise. Oh, where am I to? Oh, no. Next point. So that's leading with wisdom, seeking wisdom, lead wisely. Secondly, love unconditionally. And boy, we need God's help for that one, don't we? Because it doesn't come naturally. And third thing is be a hero by leaving a lasting impression. Having a vision for the future. Beginning of Psalm 78 talks about how God established the family as his primary way of passing on the truth of his word to the next generation, and the next, and the next. Christianity, as they say, is only one generation away from extinction. So if we're not passing it on, so they can pass it on, so they can pass it on, it may not happen. Most successful people I've come to realise understand the importance of legacy. Someone has said that our children are living messages that we send to another generation. And I realise that our kids, as they grow up, they're probably going to be part of a generation that, I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be going on to better things. So we're sending them to a generation that we're not going to be a part of. And probably for most of you here that have kids, you'll be in the same situation. So we're sending them off to a generation. What message are we sending with them? How are they going to impact their friends? What values, what morals? Do they have a faith that they're taking with them? And of course, that's the thing as parents that we want them to be taking, to be passing on to the next generation. But of course, the here and now is not all that there is it? There's more to just today. And sometimes we need to think with the end in mind. Now, I want to paint a picture here. Just imagine that you have come to the end of your life and by some miraculous intervention or however it works, you're at your own funeral. Now, I don't want this to happen to anybody in the near future, but say that we are at our own funeral, looking down somehow. How do you want to be remembered? What sort of things do you want your friends who are there to be saying about you? So maybe just call out, if we can have a little bit of audience participation, if that's allowed. Just call out a word or a short phrase. How do you want to be remembered? What do you want your friends to be saying about you at your funeral? You just yell it out, I'll repeat it. Kind? Yeah, I'd like to get to my funeral and people say I was kind. Sure. Truthful? Yeah, definitely. A good value. Walk with God. Yeah, wow. Yeah, imagine getting to your funeral and saying, yep, Andrew walked with God. Man, what a powerful statement. Couple more. Generous. Yeah, definitely. One more. Fun. I like you. I'll come and see you afterwards. Got to be fun. Anything worth doing is worth having fun. Now, of course, you know how to have those things said about you, don't you? That is live like that now. Because success is not just the end goal, it's the process of getting there. The process of living a life that's fun, or walking with God, or truthful, or generous, or honest, all those things. To be living those now. What we do today will affect future generations. And I want to tell you a story about a couple that we met at a Family Life conference a number of years ago in Queenstown. It's a tough place to do a weekend conference, having to go to Queenstown, but someone's got to do it. But there was this couple that were there, and they had been married for 40 years at that point. They had 9 children and a busload of grandchildren, literally a busload of grandchildren. And so they were just this amazing couple, so positive, so fun, so energetic, just really encouraging to be around. And I remember sitting with them at one stage and saying, look, you guys have got this incredible relationship. 9 kids, all these grandchildren, it's an amazing legacy. What does it feel like to have that sort of legacy? And he said to me, well, Steve, it hasn't always been like that. He said, we raised our children, we're in a Christian family, we raised them to have a faith, and we passed on our values and our morals, and we instilled all those things into their lives for them. But he said over a number of years, all 9 of them, of our kids, sort of drifted apart and went off the rails and sort of started going their own way. And we were sort of thinking, what have we done wrong as parents? Well, his eldest daughter came home one night and said, Dad, I want to talk to you. So they went into his office and she said, Dad, I don't like the way that you talk to Mum. And he thought about that and what are you talking about? Hang on, I've been a good father, I've been a good husband. But as he reflected back and he thought of some instances, some experiences, he realised that, hey, she was right. And so he made a commitment then to change, to make a difference, to honour her, to say things to his wife that would honour her, to encourage her, to build her up. And he said that's why we like coming to these weekends, because, we get to learn ways of doing it better. Well, he didn't realise at the time that his daughter had also gone to his wife and she said, Mum, I don't like the way that you treat Dad. And so there'd been some changes made, and he said it was just amazing because over a period of time, all of our 9 kids came back. And I said, well, that's an amazing story. Amazing story, James, but it doesn't really answer the question. What is legacy? What does it feel like? And he said, legacy. I'll tell you what legacy is like. I wrote it down so I wouldn't get it wrong. He said, I'll tell you what legacy is like. He said it's the most profound feeling of satisfaction and fulfillment you can imagine. Wow. Doesn't everybody want that? My vision for us as a couple and for everybody here is that we would get to near the end of our life and be able to look back and say, I think I've passed some things on. I haven't been perfect, haven't done it all right, but I think I've made an impact, I've made a difference. I don't know where you are, your background, I don't know many people here, but you may be looking back on the past with some regret. There's a Chinese proverb that says, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. You have no idea the impact that you can have on your children if you have them, on other people, your workmates, your people that you mill around at church who see how you live and what your life is like. You have no idea what your impact can be in the culture that we live in. Trust me, I've seen it happen. But we can talk about all this stuff and it sort of sounds good, but is it easy? I have to admit that there are some days where I think as a dad, am I doing a good job? And I think, and I've come to realise as parents, most parents carry a lot of guilt. Because how can you ever know you've done enough for your kids? Have I done enough for my kids? Have I done enough of the good things? Have I done the good things? Have I ruined my children? Well, I sort of look at that, and a few years ago, when my kids were younger, they bought me this bookmark, and it's a bit small, you probably can't see it, but all it says is, the world's best dad. Now, I've kept that, and the thing I like about that is I know that I am not the world's best dad. I'm just glad that God is at work in my life, and he's causing me to be more like him on a day-to-day basis. But a couple of young kids that live in my home thought that I was the world's best dad. Now, they've seen me at my best, but they've also seen me at my worst. And they know that I make mistakes. They know that I can lose my cool and that we can have some days that aren't very nice at home. Do you ever have them at your place? No, just me? Okay. But I've kept that. I've hung on to that because, we all need encouragement like that, don't we? Because there's always days that are going to be bad days. But hopefully there's always a lot more days that are good days. Your life is a message to the world. My life is a message to the world. Make sure it's inspirational. So my vision for us and for you here is that we'd get to the end of our life and we'd look back and we would say, I've led wisely. Not perfectly, because we all make mistakes, because we're selfish, we do things wrong, but that we've led wisely and that we've sought wisdom. And you might want to just call that pray hard, because there's some days in life where all you can do is pray hard and God answers those prayers, that connection, that intimate connection that we have with him. So lead wisely, that you would have loved unconditionally. And we need God's help for that one too, don't we? And that you would have left a lasting impression on the people that you live with, that you rub shoulders with, that you have a relationship with. Never underestimate the impression that you can have on another person. Let me pray for you. Father God, thank you for the incredible privilege we have of calling you Father. You could have chosen any other name, any other name for us to be called to call you by, and yet you chose the deep, intimate relationship term of Father, Abba Father, Daddy, that incredible closeness that you want with us as your children. And Father, I pray for each of my friends here, my brothers and sisters at Green Lane, that, Lord, you would use them in their relationships, whatever they are. Lord, I uplift mums and dads here this morning. I uplift families that are under attack in our culture. We live in dark times, but Lord, it's in dark times that the light shines the brightest. And so I pray for my friends here that, Lord, you would use them as a light on a hill to shine out into our culture of what you are like, of who you are like, of what a relationship with you is like as a Christian, as a follower of Christ. Lord, that you would use each of us to make a difference in our own sphere of influence. Bless these guys, I pray, in your mighty name of Jesus.